Coming up on Behind the Click. How does one lead without authority?
I think leading without authority or influencing without authority is more about collaborative leadership, driving consensus together, moving forward together.
Did you have to fight for space in order to be able to take on leadership? And how does that apply to your team now?
I learned what I did not want to see in a leader and did not want to do as a leader early on in my career. And then in the later years, I had the good fortune of working with some really amazing leaders who really recognized, rewarded talent.
It's one thing to put in the work, you need to talk about it. And that is a part of leading without influence that I think is incredibly critical. Welcome to Behind the Click, powered by e-commerce Berlin Expo, the podcast about the visionary leaders, entrepreneurs, influencers, and experts who are shaping the e-commerce world. My name is Janine Heinrich, and I'm your host. And on this episode, we are asking the question, can you actually lead without authority? According to our next guest, yes, you can, and she's done it successfully, which is why I'm excited to introduce you all to Shivany Powani, program management lead at CNA and a seasoned leader who has spent more than a decade driving business critical projects. Shivany has built her career on something we don't talk about enough: leadership without authority. From her 5 habits of influence to real world stories where trust and empathy changed outcomes, she shows us how program managers are far more than a support function. They are culture shapers and impact drivers. In this episode, we'll explore how to influence without a title, what it takes to balance data and empathy, and how the rise of AI is reshaping personal voice and leadership in tech. Whether you're a program manager or simply someone who wants to create more impact without formal power, Shivany's story and lessons will definitely inspire you. Shivany,
Hi.
hi. I'm really excited to have you on the podcast. Thank you for taking the time to be here with me as well.
Of course, thank you for having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, I'm excited about this conversation. And to start off this conversation, actually, I kind of want to get into your role and what you do now. And you are a technical program manager at CNA, which I'm repping very hard today because I really like them. So I wanted to actually ask you because I think the average person may not necessarily understand what that means. So what is a technical program manager? And actually, what was your journey to getting to that role?
Sure. So we're getting right into the meaty
Yeah.
bit. Yeah, so I'm a program management team lead at C&A. I've been at the company for the past 2 years, and I think my technical program management journey started a while ago in my previous company. And it was a really fun, interesting way I got into it. It was just an opportunity that came up, and the wonderful leaders that I was working with encouraged me to grab it, said that it seems right up your alley,
Mhm.
and we see it in you that you could do really well there. So go for it. Um, and I find that program management is like at the epicenter of three key pillars in an organization. That is people, strategy, and comms.
Mhm.
So, if you look at any traditional leader, you normally have leadership baked in their titles. They are leaders because their titles say I'm a lead. But I think a technical program manager or a program manager in general, um, they kind of earn their leadership every day by aligning with diverse stakeholders. So that's the people aspect of the job. Really making sense out of ambiguity,
Mhm.
bringing sense to complexity, the comms aspect of the job, and also driving outcomes that align with the strategy of the organization. Um, so we are enabling organizations to innovate and thrive,
Mhm.
and definitely not support stuff.
And I think also what you brought up prior to it's a very critical function.
Hmm.
It is in a way it's a leadership function,
Yes.
but it doesn't necessarily get the title of a leadership
Yes.
function. And this kind of brings about one of your core messages around leading without authority.
Hmm.
So could you actually explain a little bit more what that means? Because when I hear leading without authority, it actually sounds kind of impossible.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily as black and white as, a leader saying yes or no.
Mhm.
I think leading without authority or influencing without authority is more about collaborative leadership, driving consensus together, moving forward together. A lot about inclusion. And I know that that's a topic very close to your heart as well.
Yeah.
So I'm also curious, what's your leadership style and
Mm.
do you lead with authority, without? How does that look like for you?
That's an interesting question. I'd love to go to my team and ask them what they think. I think my leadership style has evolved over
Mhm.
time. So there was a time where I was very much just controlling everything
Mhm.
because I felt like that was the best way to get things done
Yeah.
because
You trust yourself the
I
most,
trust
right?
myself the most. And if I give it to someone else, maybe they just don't do it as fast or as clean. And sometimes you're just impatient.
Right.
But in the function that I'm in now, when there's just so much to do
Hmm.
and I just can't, you just have to have a few trusted people that you can hand it to. And that's definitely what it's evolved to. And I think balancing the aspect of how open to be versus not being open,
Hmm.
integrating data into this as well. At what
Yeah.
point do I flag something? It's very experimental, I would say, for me still at this point. So when I was more in a structured environment in corporate,
Yeah.
it was very much bossy. This is how we're going to do it. This is how we're going to move forward. Maybe your typical male archetype of a leader.
Right.
And now
Of
it's
course. Yeah.
really evolving into something different. I can definitely tell the difference, but I can't really put the words to it at this particular point in
Right.
time.
Can't
So,
put a finger on it
yeah,
yet.
how does
Okay.
that look for you?
Your journey sounds really interesting, by the way. So my leadership style evolved. I think early on, I learned what I did not want to see in a leader and did not want to do as a leader early on in my
Hmm.
career. And then in the later years, I had the good fortune of working with some really amazing leaders who um, who really recognized, rewarded talent, gave opportunities, gave creative freedom, and I think that I learned a lot from that. And once I became a parent, openness and empathy became a key component of my leadership style. I also learned to prioritize a lot
Right,
because you just don't have time
right.
for the fluff. You just have to get things done and you just need to focus on the most important stuff. So I think that is how the journey has gone through a professional leadership style has gone through a professional change as well as a personal change.
Mm,
So that's where it is now.
interesting. And so when we're talking about the aspect of leading without authority, I'm kind of curious about this because I know for myself when I was coming up career wise, there's this feeling like you want to take on more responsibility, you
Hmm.
want to be more of a leader,
Yeah.
but sometimes it feels like it's not your place or it's a little bit hard to get a bit of authority so that you're allowed to lead. So,
Yeah.
how does one lead without authority?
Yeah, I have. So this was especially in the technical program
Yeah.
manager role or a program manager role. It is it's very tricky because you are given this whole responsibility of driving something to success
Hmm.
without really the authority to make changes, to deprioritize, because everyone has their fixed role
Hmm.
in this whole change that you're driving. So over the past years, from working with different people, I kind of, and working in various industries, I've worked for the past 13 years in about different software industries, fintech, e-commerce, etc. And I learned, or I put together like a playbook of 5 different habits that I practice that should kind of see you through all the different kind of industries that you work
Okay,
in.
interesting. And what are those 5 habits?
So one of them is the first one is assuming good intentions.
Mm,
So this I read in this excellent parenting book called Good Inside.
mm,
It's not just a parenting book. I mean, it is of course a parenting book, but you can also read it.
yeah.
It's by Dr. Becky Kennedy, and where Dr. Becky Kennedy encourages you to look at your child with the absolute best intentions and says that every child is a good child, just going through a hard time or having a hard day.
Mm,
Um, so while I practice that in my personal life, I thought it was a great skill to have in the professional life as well,
mhm,
because it means that you're going in without judgment, you're engaging without any bias, uh, and that makes you create the safe space
mhm.
where anyone can feel heard and validated. So you're in essence, you're assuming good intentions of that conversation or of that person right from the start.
Can I be honest?
Yes.
that sounds incredibly hard to do.
It
Like,
is.
it sounds fantastic in theory. Like,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
sure, of course, I can go in without my
Yes.
bias or assume good,
Yeah.
but we always have an idea or impression of what we think. So, was this a learning curve for you at some point?
100%.
Okay.
100% a learning curve.
Yeah.
Definitely did not come naturally
Yeah.
to me or did not come straight off the bat. That's also because of our societal conditioning, right? We always have, and humans,
Yeah.
we normally have some kind of impression or a
Mhm.
bias. But this was something that I practiced very hard. First in my personal life, like I said, with my child, with my partner, and now practicing. It takes practice. There's nothing you can do without practice,
Yeah.
but it takes practice.
Okay.
So I go into it every time assuming good intention.
Okay.
The second habit was building trust. I think that goes without saying that trust, like straight up asking you, would you be influenced by someone you don't trust?
Mm.
I don't think anyone would. So this trust aspect, the trust part has two aspects. One is the relationship part, of course, the personal relationship that you have with that person or you build with that person. And the second one is really putting in effort to know your stuff, to know your material. Um, don't be afraid to acknowledge uncertainty or mistakes. Um, and also, one very important aspect of building trust is that your actions match your words.
Mm. Having
What
integrity.
exactly? Having integrity. So, that's a really important habit. My third one is being data driven.
Mm.
I cannot emphasize this enough, but it really backs your instincts up. It levels up your influential capability.
Mm.
It's very hard to argue with data as well
Mhm.
if you put it out in the right way. So, yeah, just try to be as data driven as possible.
Gotcha. So far we have you're assuming good
Yeah.
intentions, you're working on building trust, you're being data driven,
Yes.
and then
And the four and five, the fourth one is having a growth mindset. I
Mm.
know this sounds uh, like a catchphrase, but really for me, being having a growth mindset is accepting success and failure as a part of your experience. Every experience, understanding that every experience broadens your horizon.
Mhm.
Also being unafraid to say, yeah, I made a mistake. Let's learn from it.
Mhm.
You don't have to be, you don't have to know everything and do everything right off the bat. So that's a growth mindset. And the fifth one is recognizing value. Um, this is about when you're trying to influence someone, how you want to recognize value. How I want is usually by showing the other person or their team what's in it for them.
Mm.
How are they going to benefit from this? And you can find different ways to do it. It doesn't have to be, for example, there are some intangible things such as maybe they want to work on an opportunity that they like. Maybe it's a dream of theirs to work with this new technology.
Mhm.
Or maybe they want to work with the people that's in that particular team. Um, or more tangible benefits such as a promotion or an adjustment to your compensation. So recognizing value in that aspect, so that you don't have the authority, but that is one step to influencing someone
Mm.
uh, in the direction that you want to take.
Wow. I'm kind of interested because I mean, each of these on their own are, in my opinion, quite large, right? Like
Yes.
taking the time to build trust. You've just come to a team and now you've got to get the team to trust you, but you also need your time to trust the team so
Yeah.
that you can get to a point where you can assume good intentions, right? Being
Yeah.
data driven, you need to set the foundation for that. Having a growth mindset, that is a whole prior therapy session for a few people in and of itself to rewire themselves and how they think.
Yeah.
And then recognizing value, maybe that's a little bit more straightforward if you can
Yeah.
identify what value it is.
Yeah.
So for someone in such a role where maybe they're not at a C level or like at a lead level or whatever it is, but they do want to lead, even though they maybe don't necessarily have the authority.
Yeah.
How do you start with these 5 habits? Because it's like it sounds like a lot.
It does sound like
Yeah.
I know, I know. It took me
Yeah.
quite a few years of practicing this to get to a point where now I feel comfortable
Mm-hmm.
practicing this on a daily basis. How do you start? That's a really good question. How did I start? I think for me the easiest one to start off with was building trust, and that was by relationship building, by getting to know people, who they are outside of that work environment,
Mm-hmm.
having conversations. Um, And that came a bit more naturally to me. So I'm not saying that that's the easiest place to start for everyone, but that came naturally to me, and that's where I started. Assuming good intentions is also a practice you don't need, especially when you come new to a team. It's a blank slate. It's easy to assume good
Mm-hmm.
intentions because you have no impressions. So that's a bit easier.
Yeah.
I think the harder bit here in these 5 habits that I have is being data driven
Mm-hmm.
and recognizing value, because they often don't depend on just you. You know what I mean? They're depending on the structure of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
What can you offer? What can you not? In terms of, let's say, in terms of recognizing value, right? And in terms of being data driven, also, how much can you share? What data is there for you to use?
Mm-hmm.
How much can you share? So I find those a little more tricky, especially when you come right into a new company
Mm-hmm.
to do. But the rest I feel is more personal.
Would you say those are also the hardest to practice consistently and follow through on, or would it be one of the other ones?
I think the other three, for me personally, the other three are a bit easier
Mm-hmm.
because now I'm trying to keep that as a part of my personality,
Okay.
or because I practice them both personally and professionally. But the other two, being data driven and recognizing value, is more tangible. And so it requires a little more in-depth understanding of the org structure that you are in. So I think it's harder to practice consistently.
Okay.
Also, it's also hard to keep promises like that.
Mm,
So it's a bit harder that way.
yeah. And so now I'm really curious, kind of getting down to the concrete nitty gritty of this. What does this look like for you on the day to day? So, do you have examples of where you've used these habits to be able to influence a particular outcome that you were hoping to get, or something of that nature?
Uh, yes, I think I've used them, not necessarily all 5 at once, but I've used them in different places to drive the outcome that I want.
But what about pushback? I mean, did you experience pushback during that? How do you cope with that?
Yeah, I think you always do experience pushback,
Yeah.
especially as women of color, 100%.
Yeah.
Um, I think I took it in my stride. Yes, I understand your points. Let's talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's work through your problems. And if there's something that you just simply cannot work with, then we discuss with the organization. And that's how I dealt with it. But now that you spoke about pushback, what is your tip on dealing with pushback? I'm going to learn from that.
Oh. Do you mean on the day to day with the
Yeah,
team?
yeah,
Yeah, I guess I think it comes to just explaining and trying to understand where they're coming from
yeah,
with the pushback because there's probably a reason. There's
yeah,
probably a fear. There's probably a lack of interest in having certain change
yeah,
happen. Um, that's usually where I would say the pushback comes from, and then it really is just a matter of listening and
yeah.
trying to understand. I don't
Really
think
good point. Yeah,
arguing gets you anywhere. I don't think there does get to a point where if you're consistently getting so much pushback and you don't have the capacity anymore for it because you just need it to move forward, you just have to put your foot down and say it just is.
it just is.
Like, but I think it only comes to that point after you've heard them out and you've been
Yeah,
able to take the concerns into consideration, can explain why you can't change it and it just is that way. And if you
yeah,
can change it, thank you for the feedback and we do it that way. So I think that on that level, when you're more in a leadership position and you're talking to a team or at the same level, that works. But I'm actually also wanted to bring it back to you because the other part of pushback for me is what happens when you're leadership without authority and you're not being given the freedom or flexibility or the authority from above. So you are trying to make the influence and the change, but maybe your manager is kind of like, no, we're not going that route, even though you've already kind of started going in that direction.
yeah,
Or even as you said, being a woman of
yeah,
color in certain environments, it's just harder to get the authority.
yeah.
So how do you cope with that then?
That's usually where I bring in the data-driven aspect of
Okay.
things, right?
Yeah.
Because then it's very hard to argue with it, like I said.
Hmm.
And for that, you really need to put in the effort to ensure that you've got the best information out there. Put
Hmm.
out the best information, put out the right information, be as data-driven as possible. And then if you still have people pushing back on that, then it's really their prerogative, right?
Hmm.
How they want to drive that organization. But in general, I've noticed that when you pull out your data and when you've got your research and you've put in that effort, it's very hard to experience pushback after that.
Okay.
It's
S-
usually not common.
Yeah. So how does that look within the context of the e-commerce world? So as you're working at CNA and you're pushing projects along and you're rallying the team, what does that look like on the day to day?
Um, so I think one of the roles that a TPM plays on a daily basis is is really bringing perspective to what you're doing. So on a day to day, you've got domain experts, subject matter experts doing what they're doing, um, great, doing everything beautifully, and then you've got someone from the business side saying, "This doesn't work. I want something else. Or I want to reprioritize this, etc." Um, and I think one thing that program managers do, because when domain experts and business people as well,
Mm-hmm.
business leaders, they often get very lost in the depth of their tasks. They're going very deep into what they're doing. They get lost in it. So what we do is to bring the holistic picture
Mm-hmm.
or the holistic perspective to the surface. We keep resurfacing the why. Why are we doing this really? Who is in the end benefiting from this? In the e-commerce world, is usually the customer. The customer is the king, so you're keeping the customer at the forefront. So resurfacing repeatedly why are we doing this
Mm-hmm.
and keeping that at the forefront of everything um, also helps or kind of solves that problem. Not solves it, but yeah, kind of mitigates that problem a bit.
Mm-hmm. And do you think the culture of the company, though, influences, or even the industry influences the ability to lead without authority, or even the role of a program manager then? Like when you look back at your career, do you think that role looks different in each of the companies that you were at, and even the ability
To influence?
to influence?
Also, a really good question. I think yes. So I think the role of program manager is really what you make it out to be at the company that you're in. It is at its core, it remains driving impact in complex businesses with interactive moving parts. That's where you see most impact of a program manager, technical program manager, regular program manager, everything. You see the
Mm-hmm.
most impact in a complex business with a lot of interactive moving parts. And I think leaner organizations don't often need that complex program management. So I think it differs there. It differs there because then you change your approach to what the lean organization needs. And often it's not complex program management, but a leaner approach, maybe more in depth. Whereas if you see in a complex business, you need a more wider perspective as compared to an in depth perspective in a lean organization.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's interesting. I think I'm trying to get to the nitty gritty of it, like the day to day practicalities
Hmm.
of, especially in your role being a leader, it, or yeah, having a team and managing all of these roles and all the impacts within the commerce space, which is also a space that's relatively seasonal.
Yeah.
How are you balancing, or how can a leader or team, like someone managing a team or multiple projects, manage the pace and the deadlines that are coming, plus still trying to lead without authority, taking all of these people into account? How does that really look granularly then?
Yeah, I have to say it also depends from person to person, but let me give you an example of how
Yeah.
I see it. You're right, the e-commerce industry is heavily influenced by seasonality, by holiday season, by sales. So that's a lot of external pressure,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of non-negotiable deadlines. But what you're looking for in the e-commerce world is also the culture of ownership, just because of the speed of it. When something's moving that fast, you want people to own things, and you don't want to um, slow them down, right? With
Mm-hmm.
a very heavy top-down approach. So you want to cultivate that culture of ownership. So for me, it's about cultivating that culture of ownership. Here's the basic framework on
I
how
was
you
gonna
do
say, how do you
things.
do? Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. This is what you do. This is so that we agree on as a team.
Mm-hmm.
This is these are the rules we agree to. This is the framework we agree to. After that, you do you.
Okay.
right? Bring in your personality, bring in your strengths, play your strengths. Whatever you're struggling with, come to us. So we have a weekly catch up every week, me and my team,
Mm-hmm.
where we not just discuss the status of where we are at, but also learn from each other. Say, I'm doing this really well, but hey, I'm struggling with this. Could you
Mm-hmm.
help me out? Could you tell me how I can improve this aspect of my job? For example, I have team members who are really skilled in the organizational aspect, really skilled in people management, um, stakeholder management, for example, and some who are just excellent at identifying risks and dependencies. So we all just learn from each other.
Mm-hmm.
So you're cultivating that culture of ownership. And what I do as a leader is really keeping the vision uh, as a North Star.
Mm-hmm.
What is the vision of a technical program manager or a program management team? We are enablers of growth. We do that in a sustainable way, which means that we don't um, repeatedly, we ensure that no one's doing duplicate work. Um, so we have our eyes and ears out in the
Mm-hmm.
company, and that's our vision. So I ensure that, and that's applied to the organization as well, I feel. You can apply this anywhere. Keep the vision, cultivate ownership and speed, and keep the vision as the North Star.
Okay, I see. And I'm kind of curious also, how do you see the influence of AI impacting the industry, and especially when it comes to working with a team?
You can't have a conversation today without speaking about AI, can you?
No, unfortunately, it's
It's just coming.
everywhere.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. Sorry.
Yeah. So AI, I think, is a force multiplier. Truly, um, is it going to make the organizational aspect of your job easier, more efficient? 100%. But in the short to midterm, where I see program management leaders um, becoming, let's say, the relevance of program management leaders is in the people aspect of the job. It's in program managers who have diplomacy, flexibility, and the ability to influence, really.
Mhm.
And that's going to become, that's the relevance I see in short to midterm. Long term, nobody really knows.
Yeah.
And that I think holds true for every profession, right? How do you feel about AI, and are you using it on a daily basis? How has it impacted your career?
Yeah, I live, eat, breathe.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, I'm one of those adopters who like
Early adopters, yeah.
took it on and use it for pretty much everything at this point. I would definitely say when it comes to prepping and working with a team, it definitely helps to speed up the work, right?
Yeah.
So things that would previously have taken me just a little bit longer to prep an agenda or prep a briefing for a task, I really can just take my bullet pointed list and say, here's the points, please create a structure. And that
Mm-hmm.
works really well. So on that front, incredibly helpful. On the other front, when it comes to things that you were bringing up around the 5 habits, that's where I think it would never be able to replace the aspect of building
People
trust
can.
with your team. If anything, I would say it takes away the trust
Mm,
because then you're more likely to see sometimes shady work where you're like, okay, I know ChatGPT wrote this up for you.
right.
And if you would have just taken a little bit more time to think through the product and the idea, you probably could have come up with something a little bit more original or more useful for the situation. And I think it's also but then we have to assume good intentions, right?
Yeah.
So they just meant well, just didn't complete things properly. But I think the human aspect of leading
Mm,
cannot be replaced
yeah.
with AI. I think it's more of an enabler
Yeah.
for speeding things up in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Um, I do get a little bit skeptical sometimes
Mm-hmm.
of its uses, I have to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But to be honest, overall a big fan
A big fan.
of,
Cool.
of
Do you
puppets.
think AI takes away your originality or your voice? Have you experienced that yet, or
I think it
it's
takes
just a
away
bump?
from people's willingness to think a little bit longer on something.
Right.
That part is just making people us a little bit lazier.
Mm.
I mean, I
Or
wouldn't
you could say more efficient.
whichever end of the coin people want to pick
Right.
out,
Of
right?
course. Yeah.
I mean, how do you see it as in a leadership position? Like, have you noticed that sometimes maybe you're not getting the originality or the work at a level that you were expecting it? Have you seen a difference in the work?
Yes, when I see emails and something written up, for
Mm-hmm.
example, but honestly, I use it as well. And I think it's about using it the right way.
Okay.
I'm sure there's a way, not I'm sure there is a way to ensure that
Mm.
it takes your tone, takes your voice. You don't lose, and you cannot have chat. uh, Personally, for me, um, for example, any of the talks that I go to, etc., I will never have anything written fully by ChatGPT. It is my thoughts, it's my experience, and that really matters.
Mm. And I'm kind of curious a bit, and this is kind of going a little bit back to the leadership topic in more depth, but to me, it sounds like you're already in a position of leadership,
Hmm.
to be honest. So
Yeah.
you are not necessarily leading without authority. So, what either was it like for you at the beginning of your career?
Hmm.
Did you feel like you were in environments that enabled you to do it? Did you have to fight for space in order to be able to take on leadership? And how does that apply to your team now? You did
Mm,
say you give them a bit of ownership, but
yes,
what
completely.
else?
Yeah.
What does that look like for you in the past, and how do you apply that to your team now?
Um, so in the past, where I didn't necessarily have the leadership position that
Mm-hmm.
I have now, um, and also let me just put this into perspective. I'm a program management team lead, so I manage a team of people,
Mm-hmm.
but the leadership position where I have decision making power is still not there because I'm a program management team lead. I'm still in the program management domain where um, I'm more influential rather than decisive, or
Mm,
rather than the decision maker, not decisive, but rather than the absolute
okay.
decision
So you
maker.
help the decision maker.
Exactly, right? So there's that aspect is still there.
Mm-hmm.
I still practice influencing without authority in that aspect.
Okay.
For a team, yes, influencing without authority as well as having the leadership position that I have. So in the past, it was very much about being in positions where I would be told, these are the decisions we've taken. Here's what you've got to do now. Execute.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to fight a lot to be at the um, at the decision making table, or at the place where decisions were taken, to be involved in strategy, um, and to really show the value of how a program management technical program manager can bring value to that, because we are seeing things that you're not seeing.
Mm-hmm.
We are our scope is broad, right? We're looking at things from a very holistic point of view.
Mm-hmm.
So we are seeing things so you're not seeing. So there's high benefit in having a technical program manager there at that table. So there was definitely some things I had to fight for
Mm-hmm.
previously, and so now I think that my team goes through that. We all go through that. Like I know the struggles, so my team goes through that, and it's it's just I'm trying to fight for them as well now, trying to say, no, this is where we should be,
Mm-hmm.
and this person should be involved in every conversation. Doesn't always work out, sometimes it does. So it's an ongoing journey, I would say,
Yeah.
of trying to ensure that program management gets its due.
Yeah. Maybe one question around that before we kind of get towards the end of the
Hmm.
conversation.
Sure.
I know my own personal experience when I was essentially leading without authority, there's just a point where you're getting so many no's constantly. Like, it's crazy. You can present all the data you want to present
Yeah.
to the decision makers. You can tell them everything, and then they'll get thrown off by like the title of something because they had a bad experience with it in the past. Or sometimes you'll just get the most, it's just
Random
a
no's.
random nose, and you're gets to a point where it gets really discouraging,
Yeah.
And then I know myself, I in my leadership position for my team was getting frustrated.
Yeah.
And then you now have to go back to your team and say,
I
sorry
couldn't.
again, it
I
cannot move
know.
forward. And I cannot give you a very good reason why, or here's the reason, but I know it's not going to be satisfactory for all of you.
I know.
So there's a huge aspect of morale
Yeah. I
now
know the
that you're.
feeling. Yeah. Absolutely.
How do you cope? I don't think I still haven't figured out how to cope with that.
Neither have I.
Okay.
I still, it's an up and down journey.
Yeah.
It's an up and down. It really depends on my mood that day. You know. Uh, but
Yeah.
really, it's there's a lot of self motivation that
Mm-hmm.
happens first, and then you go to your team and motivate them and say, "I'm sorry. This is how it is. Uh, I'm gonna try." And so, what I usually also try to do is make up for things in another aspect.
Mm-hmm.
If if there's something that doesn't happen the way we want it to, then I try to make something else happen.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a balancing act as well, to ensure that the morale doesn't drop completely, that nothing happens the way we want it to.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if it's the best approach. I don't know if it's the right approach, but that's how I'm doing it right now.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's a tough one to cope with.
Yeah.
And kind of getting towards the end of the conversation, I wonder to myself, you mentioned that ending up as a program manager was a bit of a happy accident, right? And I always wonder to myself, for those people who are either in early parts of their career journey, how can you have more happy accidents happen to end up in roles where maybe you have new challenges or the opportunity to grow? What did you do anything in particular to be given such opportunities, or what supported you there?
I think I was very fortunate to be at the right place at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, two, I had great managers. I had great leaders. I think that makes a big difference, to where you are, and um, that's not something I had early on in my career.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when I had it, I really wanted to uh, capitalize on it, and who noticed what I was doing. Three, in general, I think I'm a people person, and that helped
Mm-hmm.
because that means that I'm chatting up with people. I know they know what I'm doing. I know what they're doing, so they also have an understanding of my skill set. So that also helps to keep me in mind.
Okay.
So that helped me at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you had those bad managers when you were younger, did you just leave? Like,
Yes.
that was it? Okay. That was the solution. Okay.
At that time, I did.
Yeah.
It was very early on in my
Yeah.
career. It was just 1.5 years in. And I tried my best. I didn't see a way out and I left.
You know what? Fair enough. And honestly, I think sometimes that's the best way. If you can, just
Yeah.
move on.
Like, cut your losses and move on.
Yeah. Especially when
Um,
you're looking for more opportunities to be
yeah.
able to lead and influence.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It makes sense to go to where you're
Yeah.
appreciated and
Yeah. I mean, that would have definitely dropped my morale further.
yeah.
Why? Why do that to yourself?
Yeah.
So,
Fair. And for anyone listening to this conversation, especially maybe the younger ones in their career, or even ones who are further on in their careers, how what is one last message you want to leave with them around leadership and influence and being able to lead? Maybe if you don't have the authority to do it.
okay. Um, I have two things, then I want to learn from you. What
Hmm.
are your tips? Um, One is a habit that I want to emphasize that I'm personally struggling with, which is intentional learning.
Mm.
I struggle with that on a daily basis because of the number of tasks I juggle, and that's not something I intentionally make time for. But
Hmm.
I see my husband do it, and I'm really inspired by it.
Hmm.
Just setting time every day to learn something, to keep yourself updated, to
Hmm.
go into the depth of what you're trying to understand. Um, and the second thing that I was listening to a podcast by Nikhil Kamath, who is the CEO, co-founder of Zerodha. That's a retail stockbroker in India,
Hmm.
really big there. And Dara Khosrowshahi. It's very hard to pronounce his name, but the CEO of Uber. And I was listening to this conversation between them, and Mr. Dara said something really um, that resonated with me, which was that his leadership style, and I think mine as well, is empathetic and collaborative.
Hmm.
However, you have to understand that leadership is fluid, and you need to be able to take charge when the time comes. It's not only collaborative, but it's also, so in essence, it's collaborative leadership with the ability to take charge when needed.
Hmm.
And I think that really stayed with me, and I want to take that through in my leadership journey, and that's a nice message.
Yeah, I think it's a great one.
And what are yours? What are your tips?
Oh, I think for anyone who's interested in leadership and influence and just being given those kind of opportunities, what I did early on in my career is I tried a lot of things.
Hmm.
So I took a lot of time to just figure out what I didn't want to do
Yeah.
by trying things out. You quickly learn what you don't like to do, but you also quickly learn what leadership styles you just don't like. And sometimes I would have people that I worked with, and I was like, oh, I do not want to be like that. Note to self,
Right.
what could we do instead? So that's one aspect. And then I would say the other aspect of it is being really bullish.
Hmm.
Um,
Love that.
a bit audacious in certain ways. I've had instances where I was just like, yeah, I'm just going to do it. Was I qualified? Probably not. But I was like, I think I can figure this thing out. I'm just going to try it. And usually I was enough of a people person at the company that I could
Right.
garner the seniors to give me enough faith and trust to let me do it, because my hard work usually prevailed and they liked me enough as a person
Yeah.
that I did get those opportunities at the end of it. And I've even had conversations with older people who are like, oh, this young generation is so impatient and you guys just don't wait for things. Because when I was telling them a story of how like I went to the CEO and I said, I don't like how this thing's being done and I want to change that thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he listened and then went with it.
Yeah.
I remember getting the pushback from a few seniors, but I was also like, well, it's changed now, isn't it? So I think
I
there's,
absolutely love that.
yeah, I think those two aspects were incredibly pivotal for getting the opportunity to influence at a relatively young age and the responsibility to do so,
Yeah.
which also gave me the confidence later on to say, okay, now I can do my own thing and also lead as I would like
As
to.
you'd like to.
And that's also the characteristics that I love to see in people that I work with. It can, I think you have to, it can be off-putting, right? Because you can sometimes feel like someone like that is a threat, but because you're like, okay,
Interesting.
why
Yeah.
are they coming so strong?
Mm.
But it's a quality in people that I think is incredibly important, because you need to be able to speak up, and you need to be curious, I would say, in
100%.
order to
Yeah.
be able to, I would say, lead without necessarily having the authority.
Authority too. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Actually, a really good point on the also your hard work really pays off. You're putting in the effort to do stuff. You have to be really good at what you
Yeah.
do. Just put in the effort. And that's another thing that also led me to those opportunities because
Yeah.
you put in the effort in the beginning. You're not going to get them just like that.
No. And I think
Put it in.
the other aspect, because oftentimes it's one thing to put in the work, you need to talk about it.
Yes.
And that is a part of leading without influence that I think is incredibly critical.
Yes.
You can do great work. I've seen people do fantastic work who've just been overlooked consistently over and over again. And so if you cannot speak, quiet mouths do not get fed. And that has been a pivotal part of also my learning journey, which is where I was like, oh, I need to talk. I need to toot my horn a little bit and be like, look what I just did,
Look what I did
everybody.
just.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that resonates with me so much
Yeah.
because now that I think my earlier career journeys was also part me. Of course, I did not have the best managers,
Mhm.
but then you can't rely on your manager to always speak up for you.
And they
You
may
have to
not
do it
want you
yourself,
to.
and they may not want exactly right. But I also did that mistake where I did not speak up for myself. I was excellent at my job,
Yeah.
but I just waited for someone to recognize that.
Yeah.
That didn't work. And now what I try to do as well as a leader is encourage people to to speak about what they're doing. And also because I don't want to be that manager who doesn't recognize, I also try to do that on my own
Yeah.
because I don't want that experience. But I really try to encourage my team to send out that email, say what you've done. It's your time. It's your turn to
Yeah.
shine. So
I would
yeah,
say get the external no.
yeah,
Don't tell yourself no. Let external environment tell you no. And when they say no, try again. You
yeah.
might just get a yes. You never know when.
Never know.
So maybe that's like the sixth habit that we could even add to the list, which is
I-
speaking up for yourself and being a little bit louder, because quiet mouths don't get fed.
I'm gonna adopt that
Yeah, please do.
policy as well. It's great.
Yeah. Well, with that, thank you so much for this conversation, all of your insights. I
Of course,
appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time.
I had a great time. Thank you.
Of course, appreciate it. Thanks for listening to Behind the Click. If you enjoyed this episode, follow the podcast and leave us a review. It really helps others discover these stories and helps us to notify you when the next episode goes live. Also, remember to join us at E-commerce Berlin Expo in February to keep the conversation going. We look forward to seeing you there, and until next time.